Hello everyone, John here from Vulgar Kitten Studios, and welcome back to our third-person shooter controller tutorial. So what we're going to do in this episode is just go ahead and get everything set up. You can see that I have this TPS template package here on my desktop, and this is actually available for download in the description of the video. So go ahead and download this package, and this contains everything that we will need to set up the base of the system. So I'm just going to go ahead and open up Unity and we'll start a new project. So let the wizard come up and I'm going to create a new project, and as I said in one of my previous tutorials, all of my tutorials I'm now keeping in a root folder. So I'll just find my tutorial projects folder and I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to call this TPS controller. Go ahead and select the folder and create an empty project. So this shouldn't take too long. Well, depending on how much slower my computer is based on the frame rate. Alright, so I just have a default project here, and I'm going to go ahead and just import this package. So I'll double click the package, and it's going to tell me everything that I need to import, as you've probably seen. I'm going to go ahead and import that. I'm just going to pause the video until it's done, and well, it doesn't look like I'll really need to. This is going pretty quickly. Well, I'll just pause the video anyway and I'll be right back. Okay, I have the package imported, and because I used the raw motion capture assets from the asset store to create some of the animations, I'm going to get these warnings about the muscle clip for those animations. These really don't mean anything at all, so I'm just going to go ahead and clear that, and we'll never have to see that again. Alright, so let's just go ahead and take a tour of what we have here. And matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead and open up the asset store as well. Alright, I'm just going to move this over here for the time being, and we'll look at some of the things that we have. Okay, so let's start out with the animations. As I said before, this controller is using an animator controller that's almost identical to the one that I did in my previous third-person controller series. So let's just go ahead and take a look at it, and we'll look at some of the differences. Okay, so first thing that you'll notice is I actually have several layers here. I have a base layer, which just contains a idle animation, upper body, which doesn't contain anything at the moment, and a lower body, which actually contains our controller logic. So let me try to move this down if I can. Oh well. Alright, so the way that this works is I actually have a couple of masks. So I've created some masks for the avatar that we'll be using, and for the lower body I've just unchecked everything as far as the upper body is concerned, all the IKs, and just left the legs and the root as what is actually going to control. We also have an upper body which contains the arms and not the head, because we'll be using a head look controller. But if we want to implement some sort of reload animations or anything like that, we'll use this particular mask along with the upper body layer, which is only controlling the upper body mask. Now, reloading is on the development timeline for this, but for this initial setup and everything, we're not going to be handling that. But as I said, I will be expanding upon this tutorial series in the future, and reloading is on the list. Okay, so we'll just go ahead and take some more time to go over this. And essentially, well, it looks like I have actually lost a transition from here, so I'm glad I opened this up. Instead of using a transition to the jump as we did in the previous tutorial from every single state, I'm just using a transition to the jump from any state, so that way we can circumvent having to set up all of the transitions. So I'm just going to go ahead and uncheck atomic, however you say that, and I'm going to set grounded to false. Okay, so that should take care of that. We shouldn't have any problems there. But again, like I said, this only controls the legs, and that's exactly what we want. We don't want any animations happening on the upper body part of our character. Alright, so again, I have some pre-made animations here. This is all the animations that are in the controller, and I have pre-made the controller, so you'll have this in your package. But our jump animations are the same as in our previous tutorial. Locomotion only contains idle and walk now, because as I said, I'm not actually implementing running animations in this controller, but the controller itself runs, so if you have your own running animations, you can actually implement that probably using a substate machine or something of that nature, and just setting a boolean to true if you want to run, probably. And that is also on the development timeline. I just actually have to get some animations for that. We also have some strafing, which again I actually took these from the raw motion cap animations. So if I just pull this over here, um, like this, and make this a little bit bigger. For the default animation, we're going to see this is a very, very long animation, and the guy just kind of walks back and forth in a diagonal way, and that's what I'm using for the strafe up walking. So what I've actually done is I've just taken and created a couple of new clips and shortened those down to the point to where they're looping, and we can see that indicated by the green dot here, so they do have looping matches. So this is for the strafe up right, and you can see it loops without any hitches. So that's how I created those animations. I just used the raw motion capture data from the asset store. Alright, so I'm not going to talk about the animations anymore. We pretty much got the gist of that. But we'll take a look at this IK system, and this is what I actually want to show from the asset store. Let me just go ahead and locate that real quick. And if it will actually search, okay, bring this back over here, and probably want to full screen this. So I just looked for IK in here. So I just typed in IK and hit enter. The system that I'm using for the inverse kinematics is the inverse kinematics script from Dogzer. So we'll just take a look at this, and it is actually free. It's written in JavaScript, so there may be a point in the future where I go through and convert this into C#, just because I don't like having JavaScript files working in my scenes if I'm working in C#, because it's not really good practice to have two different sets of mono behavior languages that way. But this is the package that we'll actually be using. One recommendation that I want to make, if you have the money to spend on it, is the final IK package, which is $90. And this package is really, really cool. It works with Mecanum, and it works especially well with legacy animations as well. But it actually has a built-in aiming system as well for third-person controller systems like this, so that part is really cool as far as that's concerned. Okay, so I'm just gonna go ahead and move this back over to my other monitor for the time being, and we'll take a look at materials. Just actually contains one material for a bullet hole, and the texture that I'm using for the bullet hole I actually got from the Bootcamp package. The same way with the HUD textures and the weapon, the M4 that we'll be using. And in fact, the original Bootcamp demo project that came with Unity 3, I believe, is actually the inspiration behind this entire system. So what I did is I actually reverse engineered that system and made a few tweaks and modifications to make it compliant with Mecanum and just make it work in a little bit scaled down, dumbed down way, so that way I can explain everything that's going on. So I definitely highly recommend checking out the Bootcamp package because that is going to be what our eventual goal is to make a game in the same sense that we can have all of the interactive elements in our environment and that sort of thing. Okay, so that's where all of the models and things came from. The sound is just a gunshot sound that I found on the internet. And the scripts, these are actually all of the scripts that we're going to be writing. Most of them that you will actually see are empty. I've just set up the template, the region templates and everything to get you started. So the skeletons are there, but the code is non-existent, and that's what we'll be doing in this tutorial series, is writing all the code and setting everything up in our prefabs. So I actually have a couple of prefabs that we'll be working with here, but they don't have any mono behaviors attached to them All they are is just basic setups, and that's what we're going to be creating. Okay, so also uh, I have a couple of pre-made scripts in here. I have the C# head look controller, and this I actually found on the Unify wiki, so I'm going to go ahead and pull that up in my browser, and that's just right here on the Unify wiki. If you Google it, then you'll find it right away. But I'm using the C# head look controller, and I believe that there is a JavaScript version of it. Yes, there's a JavaScript version of it as well, and this is what we're actually going to be using to allow the character's head to look at our reticle that we'll be drawing on the screen. Okay, and this actually uses IKs as well, but it's a little bit more complex, and it's just it's pre-written for us, so that's why we are using this script. Also, I have another script in here that's already written, which is the character motor. Now, what this is a C# conversion of the JavaScript character motor controller that you will find in the standard assets package on your third-person controller and first-person controller. If you import those from the standard assets, this has just been converted in C#, and I originally started doing this myself, but it wasn't until after I actually completely converted it that I found someone who had already done that. So I've already provided it to you, but I do want to go ahead and Google this because this guy has provided it for free. So I'm just going to say C# character motor, and it should be the first one that comes up. It's on the Unity 3D forums, so we'll go ahead and take a look at this. This guy has generously converted the character motor script, the platformer controller script, and the FPS input controller script that were originally written in JavaScript into C#. Okay, so that's where I got this. And other than that, like I said, we'll be creating everything ourselves. Also, one more thing, like I said, I'm going to be using a couple of paid assets, so I'm just going to go ahead and import those now. And I do recommend both of these packages. They are extremely useful and fairly cheap. So I'm going to go ahead and go into my local storage and see what I have here. That's an animations pack. Let me just search up prototype. Okay, so prototype core. I'll go ahead and click it so we can open it up in the asset store here. And again, I'm not 100%. Oh, well, it looks like they've made it free. Maybe that's because I've already bought it, but if not, definitely import this package. Let me just search this again. Prototype. Because I think I originally spent $20 or $30 on it. But yes, it looks like they've actually created or made this free now. So yeah, go ahead and import the prototype package, and you can follow along with me in what I'm doing here. So I'm going to go ahead and import this. This is a wonderful little toolkit that we can use to rapidly create levels. And as our tutorial series expands and we start implementing more functionality, we're definitely going to need a system like this just so that we can create levels that we can, or obstacles that we can use to test our controller's functionality. And it's a lot easier to use this rather than going into Blender and creating your own models or 3ds Max or whatever 3D modeling software you use. This is just extremely fast, and you can use it directly from within the editor. Okay, so now that I have that, I also want to get my war effects package. So I'm going to go ahead and look at this. Try to find that here. Okay, so this is from JMO Assets, and I've used it in one of my previous tutorials where I created a tank top-down game, or it's a top-down little tank game. But this is something that I highly recommend. It's only $20, and it comes with 40 realistic war effects, and that includes muzzle flashes, explosions, whatever you really need, and it's extremely useful. I use it in pretty much every project that I create, so that I've definitely got my money worth out of. So I'm going to go ahead and import this, and I recommend that you do the same. However, if you want to create your own particle effects and you want to create your own muzzle flashes, be my guest. That's absolutely perfectly fine. So I'm going to go ahead and import that, and we should have everything that we need to get going. Okay, so I have that imported, and everything should be compiled just fine. And there we go. So it looks like because of the previous hierarchy layout that I had, my editor window for the prototype package is failing to load. So I'm just going to go ahead and close this tab and open that back up. So I'm going to come into Window and look for not JMO, should be maybe under it's under Tools. So I'm going to go into Tools and Prototype, and I'm going to open up the Prototype window. This I'm just going to dock right beside my hierarchy. I just find that this is a nice place to put it, and we'll go ahead and create a level. So first thing that I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and save my scene. So I'm going to save scene as, and I've provided a scenes folder, so I'm just going to go ahead and put that in here. You can use that if you wish, and I'm just going to call this testing. Now I'm going to go ahead and create a shape. So we'll hit the shape button here, and we'll see this window come up. So I'm just going to go ahead and create this cube, and I'll exit out of the shape window, come back into the hierarchy, and first of all I'm going to rename this to floor. Also, I want to create an empty object, and I'm going to have this as the hierarchy of the environment. So I'm just going to call this environment, just to keep everything organized. And I'll drop the floor into the environment, and I'll zero out this position and zero this out as well. And now I want to come back into isometric mode, and I'll come to the top view. And one really cool thing about this system is that we can do two types of editing. So we have the object mode, where we can just move the objects around just as we would in Unity's normal mode, and then we have the element mode for anything that is a prototype object, which will allow us to actually model our environments or model our objects. So I'm going to click on the right face here and just come back into the top view, and I'm going to hold down Control, and I'm going to snap this all the way over to the other line here. So I'm using two Unity units, or two large Unity units here, to scale that up. And I want to fill out this little square here with the floor, and that'll be where we run. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this over here, come back into the top view, and hold Control and just scale that right up there. Same way with the other side, and hold Control and just do it like this. And the reason that I'm holding Control is because it actually snaps the movements on the Unity grid, so that allows us to have more precise measurements. Okay, so I have this. Now I just want to go ahead and create another shape, so I'm going to create another shape and build the cube. And first of all, I want to change its vertex colors. So I'm going to just select everything, hold Control, and click all of the faces. So that way all of the vertices are highlighted in green. And I'll click Vertex Colors, and I'm just going to change this into a dark gray. That should have worked. Why is it refusing to do that? Let me try this one at a time. So select this and go into dark gray. Dark gray. Alright, so that's appearing to work now. Or maybe black. No, dark gray is probably better. I'll select the top of the floor here, just make this white, which it looks like it already is. A little confusing. I thought the colors would be a little bit more contrasted. There we go. So changing the top actually changed the perspective quite a bit. Alright, so I'm going to come back into the top view with this selected here, and I'm actually going to go into object mode. And again, I'm going to hold Control and just move this over towards the middle of our floor. And I'll come back into element mode, and I just want to make this a little bit bigger. So I'll select the right face, or the positive X face, come back into the top view and hold control and just scale this over about four cubes long. And I'll do the same over here, just 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'll come into the top view, or the top face, and come into the side view and hold control and scale this up about 4 units. There we go. Alright, so I'll come back into the hierarchy and I'll rename this to platform and drag this into the environment. And I do want to keep my vertex colors up for now, or actually I can just pop that back up whenever I need to. I'll come into the side view now and come into prototype and add a shape. So this time I want to add stairs, and I'm going to go ahead and let's see, can I move this now? I can. So I want to actually rotate this around, and I'm holding control to do this just to make sure that I have precise measurements. And I'll move this down here. And, well, actually, control Z that, and control move it down so it snaps to the floor. And actually I can just free move it up to the point of where our platform is. And I want to change, I'll move this over here. I will change the height, just move this down probably to about a 4, and just make it flush with our platform. And the number of steps, I'll probably want to increase this to about 10, and that looks about right. So I'll go ahead and build the stairs, and I'll get rid of that and come back into the top view, go back into object mode, and just hold control and move this over here so that it's flush with our platform. I'll come back into element mode, and this is going to be a little bit tricky just because I have to select all of the faces, and sometimes it doesn't want to select the proper faces, so just got to be really careful to make sure that I do get those. And I'll change the vertex colors to a light blue, and do that for the bottom as well, and just do that for this side as well. And I'll also want to do that for the stairs themselves, so I'll have to select the front and the top and do that for each individual stair. And change that to blue. Okay, so now we actually have a pretty decent little environment here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get rid of our vertex colors and come back into object mode, go to the hierarchy, and just rename this to stairs and drop that into the environment. And that really should be everything that we need to do as far as modeling at this point in time, just to get the basic idea of the character controller itself. Maybe what we'll also want to do is create a light, so I'm going to create a directional light, and I'll zero out its position and change the X rotation to 30. And I do this in pretty much all of my projects, so you can set up whatever lighting apparatus that you want. I'm just going to drop this into environment and keep that right there. And matter of fact, I'm going to create another empty in here, and I'm going to call this lighting, and drag the directional light into the lighting hierarchy. Okay, so finally I actually want to get rid of this main camera because we won't be using it. Our player prefab has its own camera. So I'm going to come into prefabs and just grab our player prefab and move him somewhere over here, and I'll just zoom in on him, hitting F on the keyboard to do that. And we can see that his character controller is actually quite low, and the way that I usually do it is I set this in script to change the center of the character controller to where it needs to be, which I'll probably still do that, but I'm just going to change the center to 1 right here. So there we go. And let me come back into the side view, and I'll just quickly rotate him around, holding control to make sure that I have the proper rotations. And so now we have him facing the stairs. And matter of fact, the stairs look quite huge. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back, click the stairs, and go back into element mode, and come into prototype. And let's see, I'm not 100% sure if I can edit that directly, so let's see. This wanted me to build another shape, so I probably should have done this previously. Let me just go ahead and I'm going to get rid of those stairs, and I'm just going to create another set of stairs. So I'll get rid of the stairs, and let me just come back and go back into object mode, and then get rid of the stairs, making sure that I don't have any vertices left over. And I'll come back into prototype and go and create some stairs. And now I will need to go ahead and get them positioned again. So I'll take the rotation tool and hold control and just rotate that around, and come back to the top view and snap it to our platform. And let's see, let me increase the number of steps to 15, and we'll take a look at that and see if that looks any better. So looking in perspective mode, I'll go ahead and grab our player, or look at our player's position here. And from his perspective, those actually look like a lot better stairs. So that's what we'll do. We'll just have to increase the number of steps, and I'll go ahead and build a stair. And again, I'm going to have to change the color, so I'll come into element mode and I'll do this real quick. Okay, so now we have the proper staircase, or a more proper staircase. So I'll just need to go ahead and rename that back to stairs, and go into object editing and drag that into our environment. And that really should be everything that we need to do for the scene. So I'm just going to go ahead and Control S to save that, and good. Okay, so looks like prototype is doing its job in cleaning up memory leaks. And yeah, so that pretty much does it for this video, and I appreciate you watching. And in our next video, we'll go ahead and start setting up our character controller and working with the code to get that all working. Alright, so thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.